Ever stumble across a place so weird you question if it's real? These islands aren't just off the map, the charts. One's covered in haunted dolls. Another looks like it was built by aliens. Some float, some whisper, and some have secrets buried deep in their soil. These aren't luxury resorts with beachside cocktails. They're real-world anomalies that defy logic, science, and sometimes sanity. Whether shaped by nature or distorted by human hands, each one flips the script on what we think an island should be. So hit that like and subscribe button for more. And let's get into 10 mysterious islands that are absolutely unlike anywhere else on Earth. 10. La Isla de las Munecas. Mexico think dolls are cute? Not here, not even close. Just south of Mexico City, in the canals of Xochimilco, there's a place that looks like a horror movie exploded in a toy store. It's called La Isla de las Munecas, the island of the dolls. And it's home to thousands of decaying dolls hanging from trees, like forgotten souls. Some are missing eyes. Others are crawling with bugs. All of them look like they've seen something you don't want to see. This nightmare started with one man, Don Julian Santana Barrera. After the tragic loss of his family, he moved to this isolated chinampa in the Laguna de Tequila. One day, he either found a girl's drowned body or failed to save her. The next day, a doll floated to shore. Don Julian hung it in a tree, hoping it would appease her ghost. Then came another doll. Then hundreds. By the time he died, face down in the canal, in the exact spot the girl supposedly drowned, he had strung up thousands of dolls. And here's the thing. People swear the dolls move. Visitors report hearing whispering voices, seeing shifting heads, and even eyes that open by themselves. Guinness World Records officially recognized it as the largest collection of haunted dolls on Earth. The island now draws dark tourists, ghost hunters, and thrill seekers who arrive by colorful Trajanera boats. Some visitors leave offerings, others change the dolls' clothes, as if caring for them might keep the spirits calm. Inside Don Julian's old hut, you'll find Agustina, his favorite doll, resting beside the first one he ever hung. The vibe? Pure nightmare fuel. Creepy, quiet, alive in all the wrong ways. No island anywhere feels like this one. It's not a tourist spot. It's a haunted shrine made of plastic limbs and grief. 9. Socotra Island, Yemen. If Earth ever needed a stunt double for an alien planet, Socotra would be it. Rising out of the Indian Ocean off the coast of Yemen, this bizarre island looks like it was dreamed up by a sci-fi illustrator high on desert air and solitude. Imagine trees that bleed red, flowers growing from bulbous trunks, and landscapes pulled straight from a Dr. Seuss fever dream. That's Socotra. The island's freakish vibe comes from isolation. It broke off from Africa over 250 million years ago, and evolution went rogue. Today, 37% of its plant life, 95% of land mollusks, and 90% of reptiles are found nowhere else on Earth. The most famous? The dragon's blood tree, with its umbrella-like crown and crimson sap, once used as medicine, dye, and, you guessed it, magical potions. Socotra is often called the Galapagos of the Indian Ocean, but it's even weirder. The desert rose looks like a tree trying to cosplay as a potato, while the cucumber tree is the only one in its family that behaves like, well, a tree. It stores water like a camel and thrives in heat that fries other plants. Despite this natural wonderland, Socotra remains off most radars. Blame geography and geopolitics. It's part of Yemen, a country plagued by war. In 2020, the UAE-backed Southern Transitional Council seized control of the island. Since then, journalists have been silenced, protests crushed, and tourism rerouted without permission. Still, around 50,000 people live on Socotra, mostly speaking Arabic and Socotri, a dying Semitic language. UNESCO named it a World Heritage Site in 2008, but environmental threats, overgrazing, invasive species, and climate change, are closing in. So if Socotra seems like a planet apart, that's because it kind of is. Strange, endangered, and unlike anything else on Earth. 8. Palm Islands, Dubai. Think building castles in the sand is for kids? Dubai took it to a whole new level. Literally, off its coast sit the Palm Islands. Massive, man-made archipelagos shaped like palm trees, designed not by nature, but by sheer ambition. It started in 2001, when the city needed more coastline to hit its goal of tripling tourism to 15 million. The answer? Build more coast. Palm Jumeirah, the first and most famous, added 56 kilometers of beachfront and stretches 31 square kilometers into the Persian Gulf. From above, it looks like a stylized palm wrapped in a crescent. And it's no ghost island. By 2015, over 18,000 people lived there. By 2009, 28 hotels had opened, including mega resorts like Atlantis. All of this was built using 94 million cubic meters of sand and 5.5 million cubic meters of rock, sourced from 16 quarries and sprayed into shape using a technique called rainbowing. No concrete, no steel, just pure geological hustle. Divers even checked the underwater alignment of the breakwaters in real time. But Palm Jumeirah is just one piece. Palm Jebel Ali, 50% larger, is back in action after a 16-year pause. Palm Dira, once the biggest of them all, stalled and was later rebooted as Dubai Islands in 2024. And then there's the world. 300 artificial islands arranged like a world map. Not all's perfect in paradise, though. These islands stirred up major environmental backlash. Sediment clouds the water. Coral reefs and oyster beds got buried. Coastal erosion is accelerating. Greenpeace and WWF have called it out. One study even linked the islands to rising sea temperatures. Still, the Palm Islands stand, ambitious, surreal, and completely unlike anywhere else on Earth. Dubai didn't wait for nature. It built its legend. 7th, Fort Boyard, France. What do you do with a floating stone bathtub built for war but never used in one? If you're in France, you turn it into a giant obstacle course for TV contestants to wrestle tigers, unlock codes, and face their fears. Welcome to Fort Boyard, half fortress, half film set, 100% weird. Sitting in the sea between Ile d'Aix and Ile d'Oléron, Fort Boyard looks like something that drifted out of a pirate cartoon. It's stadium-shaped, 68 meters long, with 20-meter-high walls and a hollow courtyard. But this fortress has always had an identity crisis. First dreamt up in the 1660s, construction didn't begin until 1801 under Napoleon. Why the delay? Because Louis XIV's top engineer, Vauban, said building it was like grasping the moon with your teeth. Harsh, but not wrong. They had to dump 98,000 cubic yards of rock just to create the foundation in shallow water. After decades of effort, Fort Boyard was finally completed in 1857, just in time to become useless. Advances in artillery made it obsolete before a single cannonball was ever fired in anger. So, what do you do with a sea fortress no one needs? You turn it into a military prison. Then, you abandon it. Then, in the 60s, a Belgian dentist buys it. And in 1990, French TV turned it into the set for Fort Boyard, a wild adventure game show where contestants face physical and mental challenges in the creepy old chambers of the fort. It's like Fear Factor meets the Crystal Maze, but surrounded by the sea, restored and reinforced. The fort is now one of France's quirkiest landmarks, a relic of failed military ambition turned into entertainment gold. No island does irony like Fort Boyard. 6. The floating islands of Lake Titicaca, Peru. They're not exactly islands in the geological sense, but the floating islands of Lake Titicaca are a masterclass in survival engineering. Built entirely from totore reeds by the indigenous Uros people, these islands don't just float, they live, breathe, and evolve. Lake Titicaca, perched 3,812 meters above sea level in the Andes, is the highest navigable lake in the world. And right near the Peruvian city of Puno, you'll find around 120 human-made islands, tethered together with rope and eucalyptus rods to stop them from drifting away. These reed rafts, some half the size of a football field, aren't temporary. People live here. Around 1,300 Euros call them home. But this wasn't always the plan. The Euros didn't set out to build floating neighborhoods for fun. They were driven by fear. 5 centuries ago, the Inca Empire was expanding fast. So the Euros, landless and under threat, took to the water. By stacking layer upon layer of floating totora roots and dried reeds, they made their haven, and it works. Totora is strong, buoyant, and absurdly versatile. It's used for houses, mattresses, medicine, boats, and even food. Locals jokingly call it the lake banana. Every 15 to 20 days, the IR top layer must be replaced as it rots, a constant cycle of decay and renewal. In 1986, a massive storm destroyed many of the original islands, pushing the Euros closer to shore. Now tourism has become their main source of income. Solar panels, radios, and even Airbnb rooms exist alongside traditional reed huts. Visitors are welcome to experience life on these floating marvels, homes that rise and fall with the lake. No island, natural or man-made, blurs the line between necessity and ingenuity quite like this. The floating islands are fragile, living artifacts, and they're still holding strong. 5. Madagascar. Welcome to Madagascar, where evolution wrote its own rules and forgot to hit send to the rest of the planet. This island, the 4th largest in the world, broke away from Africa 165 million years ago and never looked back. Since then, its plants and animals have evolved in total isolation. The result? About 90% of all species here exist nowhere else on Earth. That's not a typo. It's a whole other level of biodiversity. Think lemurs are just cartoon sidekicks? Here they rule the trees. There are over 40 species, from the cat-sized indri that sings through the forest to the tiny mouse lemur that can fit in your palm. And chameleons? Madagascar is their capital, home to the largest and the smallest ones on record. Even the trees are weird in the best way, like the legendary baobab, which looks like someone planted it upside down. But Madagascar isn't just about quirky animals and alien landscapes. It's a place shaped by complexity. Though only 250 miles from Africa, the people, known as Malagasy, have roots in Indonesia, over 3,000 miles away. Their language, architecture, and traditions reflect that distant origin, blended with African and French influences. Unfortunately, this otherworldly ecosystem sits on a fragile foundation. Decades of political instability, including a bloody coup in 2009, have taken a toll. Deforestation, illegal rosewood logging, and poaching are ripping into the island's natural defenses. Conservationists are scrambling to protect what's left before rare species vanish for good. Still, Madagascar hangs on. Its central plateaus, coastal cliffs, and volcanic peaks remain rugged, remote, and full of wonder. It's wild, it's raw, and it's like stepping into an alternate timeline where nature had the final word. This isn't just an island. It's a biological time capsule, and it's still ticking. 4. Alcatraz Island. This isn't just some craggy rock in the middle of San Francisco Bay. This is Alcatraz, the island that turned isolation into legend, originally called Isla de los Alcatrazes by Spanish explorer Juan Manuel de Ayala in 1775, thanks to all the seabirds. Alcatraz sat quiet until the U.S. Army claimed it in 1850. They built a fortress, then a prison, and by 1934, it became the federal government's answer to, what do we do with the worst of the worst? Answer, send them here. Capone, Machine Gun Kelly, Creepy Carpus, and the Birdman of Alcatraz all did time on the rock. With razor wire rules, brutal isolation, and frigid shark-rumored waters surrounding it, Alcatraz was designed to crush escaped dreams. Yet in 1962, Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers vanished through a hole they'd spent months digging with spoons. They built a raft from raincoats and disappeared into the night. Official word? They drowned. But no bodies were found. mystery still floats. Then came the twist no one saw coming. In 1969, Native American activists occupied the island for 19 months, demanding land rights and bringing national attention to indigenous struggles. Fires were lit, messages were painted, history was made. Their protest helped end the U.S. government's termination policy toward Native tribes. Even after they were forced off, their message stuck to the stone. The prison closed in 1963, too expensive, too weather-worn. But Alcatraz didn't fade. It became a National Historic Landmark, a tourist magnet, and a symbol of everything from injustice to resilience. Over 1.7 million visitors come each year to walk the cell blocks, read the graffiti, and stare out at the same choppy waters inmates once feared. Alcatraz isn't just a prison, it's a monument to escape, rebellion, and the power of a place to outlive its purpose. 3. Hashima Island. Rising from the sea like a concrete war machine, Hashima Island, nicknamed Gunkanjima, or Battleship Island, is the ghost of an empire. Just 9 miles off the coast of Nagasaki, it once held the title of the most densely populated place on Earth. Now, it's a rotting monument to industry, exploitation, and the speed at which everything can fall apart. It all started with coal. Mitsubishi bought the island in 1890 and turned it into a fortress of extraction. They expanded it with tailings, ringed it in seawalls, and built Japan's first large concrete high-rise to shield workers from typhoons. 4 massive mine shafts dropped a kilometer into the earth. At its peak in 1959, 5,259 people lived on 16 acres. That's over 83,000 people per square kilometer, higher than anywhere else on Earth at the time. And they had it all: schools, bathhouses, movie theaters, rooftop gardens, even a pachinko parlor. But the coal boom masked a darker truth. During World War II, Korean and Chinese laborers were forcibly conscripted, many enduring brutal conditions underground. Estimates of those who died vary. Some say 137, others closer to 1,300. Even decades later, how that history is acknowledged or ignored remains controversial. When oil replaced coal in the 1970s, Hashima's fate was sealed. The mine shut down in 1974, residents left, and just like that, the island went silent. What remains is an apocalyptic city frozen in time. Empty apartment blocks, collapsing roofs, rusted stairwells, and the thick, quiet decay of a place nature is reclaiming. Tourists can now visit a small, reinforced section of the island. The rest is off limits, too unstable to enter, too sacred to destroy. In 2015, UNESCO declared it a World Heritage Site, but not without international backlash over Japan's handling of its wartime legacy. Hashima isn't just abandoned, it's haunted, not by ghosts, but by memory. 2. Poveglia Island. Just off the coast of Venice floats a place so feared, even locals don't dare set foot on it. Poveglia Island, a patch of land wrapped in fog and silence, has been called one of the most haunted places on Earth. And whether you believe in ghosts or not, its past reads like a horror story, written by history itself. It started innocently enough. In 421, people fleeing war settled on the island. It stayed peaceful for centuries, until the plagues came. During outbreaks of bubonic plague in 1630 and again in 1793, Poveglia was transformed into a quarantine colony. Anyone showing symptoms was shipped off. Some recovered. Most died. Estimates suggest over 100,000 people perished here, their bodies tossed into mass graves or burned in giant pyres. Rumors even claim the soil is 50% human ash. Romantic? Number horrifying? Absolutely. But it doesn't stop there. In 1922, Poveglia leveled up in creep factor when it became a psychiatric asylum. That's when things took a turn. Legends say a deranged doctor conducted crude lobotomies on patients until Driven mad by the spirits of plague victims, he jumped from the bell tower. Some say he was pushed. Others claim a strange fog swallowed him on the way down. The bell no longer hangs in that tower, yet people still swear they hear it ring. The asylum eventually shut down in 1968. A nursing home closed in 1975. Since then, Poveglia has stood frozen in ruin, its halls empty, its staircases crumbling, its fields tangled in vines. Locals call it cursed. Paranormal shows call it a hotspot. Either way, no one lives there now. The government tried to auction off the island in 2014. Plans to turn it into a luxury hotel fizzled out. Today, Poveglia remains abandoned, off limits without special permission. If you sail by, you might feel it, a chill in the air, a whisper through the reeds, the weight of 100,000 restless souls. First, Easter Island. How do you move a 14-ton statue with no metal tools, no wheels, and no beasts of burden? Welcome to Easter Island, or Rapa Nui, where 887 towering stone figures known as moai stand guard across the landscape carved centuries ago by one of the world's most isolated societies. The mystery of the moai has obsessed outsiders since Dutch explorers stumbled upon the island on Easter Sunday in 1722. Standing up to 30 feet tall, these ancestral monuments were carved from volcanic rock and somehow hauled miles to ceremonial platforms called ahu. No one knows exactly how. Sledges, ropes, rolling logs, and even aliens have all been proposed. But the statues are only part of the story, long painted as a tragic, cautionary tale of self-destruction, deforestation, overpopulation, societal collapse. A new wave of research flips that script. Columbia archaeologist Dylan Davis and his team used satellite imagery and machine learning to reanalyze the island's ancient farming system. Their findings? Rapa Nui's people likely never exceeded 4,000 residents, not the 15,000 once theorized. And those rock gardens, scattered across the island, weren't desperate measures. They were ingenious solutions. By layering broken stones over crops, the islanders protected plants from ocean winds and drew minerals into the soil. This wasn't a collapse, it was resilience. Easter Island still holds its secrets, but the deeper we dig, literally and figuratively, the more we find a society that adapted, endured, and created some of the most iconic monuments in human history. The moai aren't just relics, they're reminders of what people can build, even at the edge of the world. And there you have it, 10 islands that make you question everything you thought you knew about geography, history, and reality. Whether it's eerie whispers echoing from abandoned asylums or man-made archipelagos rising from the sea like digital dreams, these islands aren't just strange. They're unforgettable. Some are cursed, some are collapsing, some are clinging to ancient traditions, and others are monuments to modern excess. So which one blew your mind the most? Could you handle a night on Poveglia? Or would you rather explore the alien landscape of Socotra? Drop your pick in the comments, press like if you learned something wild, and subscribe for more deep dives into Earth's most astonishing places. Until next time, stay curious.